Welcome, everyone. So my name is Sofia Parent. I'm the campaigns coordinator for Sustainable Food Cities. I work at Sustain. So welcome to this webinar. So Sustain is one of the organizations behind Sustainable Food Cities, as you know. The others are the Soil Association and Food Matters. Now, before we start this webinar, I would like to take you through a few housekeeping points for the smooth running of this webinar. So first of all is that this webinar is being recorded. So you will have the recording as well as the presentations available. They will be made available to you after this webinar, and they will also be available online in the SFC website. So no need to take notes. All of this will be sent to you. The other point is that you can ask questions using the attendee chat function on your left-hand side. You can share questions, any experience you have. You can share web links, and everyone will see that. We will have some time at the end of the presentations to answer your questions. And if we run out of time, we will answer them offline and share written answers with you. And finally, if you're experiencing technical issues during this webinar, try to log out and join the webinar again. This usually works. Also, use Firefox or Chrome, because these are usually better than Explorer. So with these points made, I'll just do a quick overview of Sustainable Food Cities for those who don't know us. We're now a movement of over 50 cities, towns, boroughs, and counties from Aberdeen to Plymouth that share the same approach for transforming food and food culture. So the approach is all about reshaping the area through the lens of good food. And our approach is through the 3 Ps. The first P is for partnership. It's all about establishing an effective cross-sector food partnership involving key stakeholders. And this usually involves public agencies, businesses, NGOs, academics. The second P is for policy. And it's all about incorporating sustainable food, good food, into local policy, strategy, and planning. And the final P is for putting good food as the norm. So it's about developing and delivering a food strategy and action plan to tackle the key food issues in your local area. And in developing their program of work, we encourage local areas to think about food broadly across our 6 key areas or 6 key issues. And you can see them in your screen. I won't go into detail about them. There's also a lot of information on our website. But this approach is a tried and tested model for driving positive change in the local area. So if you're not yet a member of Sustainable Food Cities and would like to know more about the benefits of becoming a member, please get in touch and a member of our team will assist you. And the only other thing I'd like to cover before we start with the theme of this webinar, which is all about the Big Dig, is a quick overview of the Veg Cities campaign. It's a feature campaign of Sustainable Food Cities. It's led by the food and farming charity Sustain in partnership with the wider Peace Please initiative. And the aim of Veg Cities is all about increasing the availability and consumption of vegetables locally. And there's currently 25 cities and other local areas involved in this campaign. And they are delivering a fantastic range of activity covering all the 6 key issues of the SFC that you've seen in the previous slide. And some Veg cities are concentrating in areas of higher deprivation, getting people to eat more veg there. Some are setting up new fruit and veg stands, cooking classes in the community, new growing spaces, improving the uptake of Healthy Start vouchers. Others are working towards getting more locally grown veg into local supply chains or improving school food, so a wide range of activity. So if your city or local area is not yet involved, please get in touch. It's very easy to join the campaign. And what some food partnerships are telling us is that this Veg Cities campaign, coming under that banner, is giving a new impetus to the food partnership, bringing people together and organizations together under a shared campaign target of getting people to eat more vegetables. And one of the areas that a lot of cities and local areas are interested is obviously food growing. So early on the campaign, we decided to invest a bit of time and resources to relaunch the Big Dig platform, which has had some really positive feedback, not only from food growing spaces, but networks of food growing networks in local areas. So we made this platform available across the UK. So as part of Veg Cities, we would love to see hundreds of gardens across the UK involved in the Big Dig network, and many of them opening up their spaces during Big Dig Day. So without further ado, let's get on to what brought us to this website. So we have a couple of presentations to take you through. So we'll start with Sarah Williams. She's Program Director at Sustain Here, and she's been involved since the early days of Big Dig, and she'll take you through the history and the advantages for gardens and growing networks. Then we'll have a case study from Manchester. John Ross, Director of Sow the City. He's been involved in Big Dig in previous years, so we'll talk about his experience in Manchester. And finally, I will take you through support available to networks and gardens. And after these three presentations, we'll have time for questions and answers. So don't forget to keep your ideas, questions coming using the attendee chat, and enjoy the webinar.
Okay, I think that's over to me. So for those of you that I don't know, I'm Sarah Williams, and as Sophia said, I am Program Director here at Sustain, but more importantly, I've been at Sustain for 9 years now, over 9 years, and during that time I've always worked on supporting food growing gardens and ultimately food growing networks. So long before the Big Dig came along, I was part of the capital growth team, and for those of you who don't know about that, I'll go into a little bit of background on that too. But essentially, I'm going to cover how the Big Dig began, and then what we see as the three elements of the Big Dig, which is the Big Dig Day, the Big Dig platform, and briefly onto the Harvestometer. So essentially, the Capital Growth Initiative, for those of you who don't know, was a London-based campaign, and also created a London-wide food growing network. During our first 4 or 5 years, we created almost 2,000 new food growing gardens, and many of those were in deprived areas of London, and engaged people from a real range of backgrounds, and told people that food growing was possible in cities. And around 2012, we had been sort of debating the idea the year before around some sort of mass participation day, and we were very inspired by the Big Lunch, hence the name. And we also knew from gardens that they really valued being part of a sort of bigger movement and feeling that they were connected to a network, as many of you I'm sure can relate to. They'd also told us that getting volunteers along to their gardens was a real challenge, and I think that, you know, in the many years since, that people have become much better at using things like social media, but at that time it was quite new for gardens to be involved in that sort of promotion. And just we're finding it difficult. Often about 50% of our gardens were volunteer run, and of the 50% that aren't volunteer run, we know that many are run by staff who've got lots of other things on their plates and are doing this work because they believe in it and they love it. For example, teachers and people working in housing associations, etc. And the other reason that we decided to hold this Big Dig Day was because we saw that a lot of gardens were very slow to start the season. So the idea was that we could try and inspire gardens to get going as quick as possible, because for the food growers among you all know, the sooner you start getting ready for the year, the better that your yields and your productivity will be. So they were our key motivations. So, very simply, the original idea was to have a big day across as many gardens as possible to get people growing. That would be new people who had never been involved in food growing before or involved in their local garden, as well as your existing volunteers who might have gone a bit dormant over the winter period. So this is really the start of the season and to get people out. But one of the other things that we wanted to do was encourage people that maybe don't get involved all year, but are those doers. They're the people that like to build things and create things and paint sheds. So there was an opportunity to engage those sort of more one-off volunteers. And we also really wanted to use all of our London-wide networks and help gardens to really start the year off with a bang through the Big Dig Day. And the other thing I should mention here is that you don't have to dig as part of the Big Dig Day. It's more of a metaphor for doing activity. We have had comments from people saying, oh, we don't do any digging, can we still take part? Of course you can. I think very quickly we realised that Big Dig could be more than a day. There was really an opportunity to share learning on volunteer engagement, and that's both working with people volunteering their own time as well as corporate. We also wanted to support the support network, so we felt that Sustain particularly has a role in supporting network development, and that's not only our own networks, but it's those other really important local networks that we see as a really fundamental part of changing our food system and food culture. And we thought that it would be really great to see if we could look at a programme of events on training and also develop an online platform. And we very much felt that we could use the experience that we had over the last, well, I think at that point it was about 4 or 5 years of capital growth, and to share that with other people across the UK. So we were fortunate enough to apply for some funding at the end of 2012. We applied to the Social Action Fund, and we got a grant to work initially with 6 cities, but we were able to expand this to 16 towns and cities during the 2-year project. There was a programme of activities throughout those cities, and those cities all employed somebody to deliver their Big Dig activities. We collectively recruited around 7,500 new volunteers and created about 29,000 opportunities for volunteers to take part in community gardens. So that's where the Big Dig network was born. And following the end of that funding, we were able to maintain an element of those activities. But we held our last National Big Dig Day in 2016. And so we're delighted now to be back, being able to offer some 3 key elements to other people that want to get involved. As you can see, a key pillar of the Big Dig concept is the Big Dig Day, and this, as I mentioned already, is kicking off the season, engaging new volunteers, rallying the older volunteers, and giving ad hoc people a chance to get involved. So from our last national Big Dig Day, we had around 200 gardens taking part in 2016, and the feedback here shows you that lots of people valued this idea of getting ready for the new season. It's a bit like giving yourself a deadline to get everything ready for the new season. Also helping people to find new volunteers. Around 60% said that they'd found new volunteers, and around half said that it helped them to re-engage with existing volunteers, and around 60% said it improved their profile. In their words, this is just some quotes from some of the gardens that they fed back to us. So you can see how basically gardens are saying that the support that we provide and the materials are useful. Things like the health and safety and the guidance was particularly useful. People saying the Big Dig creates a focal point and a firm date for kicking off community garden year, and the communications that comes from us helps keep it motivated. People talk about our bars, reaching new audiences, and also lots of feedback about actually getting stuff done. So things like we tackled 3 big jobs: clearing an area for an orchard, painting the trellis, and relaying all the paths to fresh wood chips. So I think we can't underestimate the actual fact that this also enables gardens to sort of do some big work on their sites. The second element is what we call the platform. So this is the online platform that is available to the gardens and also to the networks that are involved in Big Dig. And I think the key motivation behind the platform is that over the years, Capital Growth and Sustain have invested quite a lot in learning about how to use an online platform and how to run such a diverse and large and dispersed network of gardens. And we really felt that it was a shame not to share this more widely than with our London gardens. And we also saw that there was an increase in people really wanting to look online to find places to volunteer and in a local garden. So this uses our tech experience. It signposts volunteers, which we know are the lifeblood of gardens, to their local gardens and tells them how to get in touch. But one of the other really important elements of the platform, which, as you can see in this image, creates a map of gardens, is the way that local authorities and other partners engage with it. So we're often told by local authorities that they go online to the Capital Growth map to look at how many gardens are in their borough. So we know that there are other people watching and looking and sharing this information with decision makers and policy. And we also think there's future potential to link this up with potentially social prescribing models that are out there. And the other really important element of this is the back office function. So this is really about those organisations that are keen to develop a network for food growing spaces within their local area. And we know how vital networks are to small groups, and just to make sure people are sharing learning and resources. So we feel that we've set up something that is a system suitable to your scale. So this is if you haven't got lots of money to invest and to keep tech up to date, because we know that this isn't just a one-off investment. These tech platforms require year-on-year investment to keep them up to date and relevant. It provides you a way of managing useful contacts and keeping some monitoring data on the gardens that are operating within your area. You can work with us to keep this information up to date. And as I mentioned before, with the social prescribing, we feel there are lots of scope for development with back office function. And you'll hear hopefully a bit more from John, who has been able to use one of our systems about how that works in reality. And the third element I wanted to talk briefly about was the Harvestometer. So the Harvestometer was developed again around 2012, 2013. And again, it was from our experience working with gardens. And one of the things that we'd seen was that actually there was potential for gardens to grow a lot more food. This would increase yields, but also to help keep the people involved in the gardens a little bit more focused. And we'd found that people who were tracking and recording their yields had a sort of organisation that we thought other gardens could benefit from. And the second reason was a very practical one. It was a really good reason for people to log on to the members area, and this meant that we could found it much easier to keep their details and information up to date, and then they could have lots of functions and graphs. And we've had some really good feedback from people that have used the Harvestometer, which I can go into possibly later. So the Harvestometer has been quite a simple concept, although it's taken a lot of work to build it, is that gardens can join, they're added to the map. There's now going to be a function where a town or city can set up a page, but that is going to be optional. And the gardens log into the members area and then they record their harvest data. They can do this either by weighing it, or they can estimate it as in a bowl of or a handful of. It's an easy to use form, and the data is stored, downloaded and converted to graphs. And then I've just printed off a few screenshots of what it looks like when you go in to put your data in. So you can see that you have a list of optional fruit and veg. You then pick your veg, and you, as I say, you can pick from whether you've weighed it or whether you're using a sort of incidental measurement, so such as a bowl of salad. And then what we developed was a way of looking at and tracking at how much produce you've grown. So I've pinched this from an old presentation that I did, so forgive me. So you can see it's from 2015, but it just shows you when people use it regularly, they can get some really interesting data. And collectively, we've been able to really maximise that information. So we've produced 2 reports now, Reaping Rewards and Reaping Rewards 2, and we've looked at the scope of the network and how much fruit and veg could be grown. And so we came up with a figure of 357 tonnes, and we were able to see which vegetables were the most popular. So things like salad leaves were the first, squash and pumpkin second, probably due to their weight, and third, I think in this year, was onions. We also converted that information into how many meals were grown, which is actually a portion of your 5 a day. And now we're well over 1 million portions of fruit and veg have been grown across the Capital Growth Network, and we've been valuing that. So I think, I don't know what the current figures are, but we're approaching £1 million worth of fruit and veg being grown. So you can see that we start to, again, make people feel part of something bigger. So I think I'm going to finish there. Happy to take any more questions on which elements of that are most interesting. Obviously, the Big Dig Day is interesting for gardens, for individual gardens. The platform is particularly interesting for networks, and again, the Harvestometer hopefully is of interest to both. But finally, just to say, we're absolutely delighted that Veg Cities and Sustainable Food Cities are providing us this opportunity to be able to make this service available and free for all of the gardens to be able to use this year. So both individual gardens and networks across the UK can register, and we really look forward to you joining the Big Dig and working with Veg Cities. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Don't forget to keep your questions, ideas, feedback coming using the attendee chat. And we're going to hear from John now. John, up to you.
Hey, hello everyone. Sarah, can you move the slides at all for me?
You can move them yourself.
Okay. Right. Oh, okay. Technical issues. Hello everyone. My name's John. I'm from a social enterprise called Sow the City. We're based in Manchester. I'm going to give you a short introduction about us, why we exist, what we do, and then talk about our experience of using the Big Dig map in Greater Manchester, and also our experience of running the Big Dig Day in Greater Manchester. So we're a social enterprise. We've been running for almost 10 years now, and we've set up really to tackle a range of problems that we have in Manchester, such as food poverty, a lack of green space, problems with mental ill health, social isolation, and lack of skills and unemployment here. And we found that we've found over the last 10 years that urban agriculture and community food growing has been a really good way of tackling those sorts of issues that we have here. We're focused in the most deprived areas of Manchester, and so far we've managed to convert over 5 football pitches of wasteland and derelict land into food growing spaces, and we've taught over 7,000 people how to grow their own and related activities. There's a team of 4 of us, and we support a network of around 150 different community food growing groups across the city region. So we provide a range of services. I won't go into this in too much detail, but we provide workshops to around 1,000 people each year. We build quite a lot of gardens, mainly edible and wildlife gardens and community gardens. And we do research and consultancy. So we're doing a little bit of food poverty mapping at the moment for North Manchester, and we've done bits of food policy work. And we are we run events and do bits of policy work around food, the environment, and health. So that's us. In terms of the Big Dig, we have the Big Dig map. We've been running it since 2006, and we have about 30 projects on the map now. We administer the map ourselves, and we're the main point of contact for the map. So as Sarah said, community gardens log on or register to be on the map. They log on for it. We are an administrator for the map, so we can go to the admin area. We can see new gardens that have logged on there, and we can publish them on the map. And really, it's just a way of having a single web platform for any members of the public or any organisations in Manchester that would like to, like to get involved in their local community food growing project. The map also provides groups with access to the Harvestometer. So some things have worked really well for us, and other things haven't been worked quite so well. What's been really good is that the map is very low maintenance. So it's run, the admin area of the map is run by a volunteer that we have at Sow the City, and it probably only takes them about 1 hour per month to log on to see if there's any new gardens that have joined the map, to check to see whether their details are correct and that they exist, and then to publish them on the map. It's really easy to use in the admin area, so it's easy for a volunteer or junior member of staff to do that. You don't really need any sort of IT expertise, and we have found that it's an effective way to recruit new volunteers. We've had evidence of members of the public accessing the map and going down to their local community garden. The way the system works is that somebody can go onto the map, register their interest, and then there's an automatic email sent through to the contact person for the community food growing project. And we've also found that other authorities have been using the map. So we've had evidence of social housing landlords and also the NHS and health organisations using the map to refer people to their local community garden. We've also linked from other sites, so we've embedded the map in what's called Nature Greater Manchester, which is a central web platform for any activities in nature in the city region. So we've managed to sort of use the map to link from other websites. And we use the map as part of our referral system. So we're already linked in with community mental health teams and other health agencies. And we use the map to see what projects there are in the local area as part of a, kind of pilot social prescription service that we're running. Still sort of developing that, but it is working quite well so far. What's worked not so well is that not all of the maps, not all the projects are on the map. We can't force people to sign up to it. We're aware of lots more community garden projects than there are have signed up to the map. I suppose it's a bit of a double-edged sword. What's great about the map is that it's self-managing, and people sign on and log their own projects on there and provide the details for it. So you don't have to kind of go out and search them. But at the same time, not everybody's going to sign up to the map. So, overall, I think it's probably better that way around, rather than having to spend hours kind of looking for projects and developing something that could very quickly become out of date. So we've had a little bit of a patchy uptake. We cover the whole of Greater Manchester, and we only work in it's a little bit patchy where we work and the connections that we have with the different boroughs. So it doesn't actually cover the whole of Greater Manchester, but we cover about around 6 or so out of the 10 boroughs in the city. So the Big Dig Day is an annual event to promote edible gardens, obviously. We've run it twice in Manchester. In 2013, through another organisation called the Kindling Trust. We weren't involved in it that time, but we've run it once ourselves in 2016 with support from Sustain. And we had about probably around 10 or 15. Yeah, we've had about 10 or 15 gardens that have taken part in the Big Dig Day, and it's been a really good way to open up gardens for tours, workshops, providing food and drinks, and just sort of starting up at the start of the growing season, and getting people involved again that maybe hadn't been over the winter. So what's been really good is the timing. So it does seem to be just the right time to start to think about getting a good volunteer base going again. We've had some really good attendance, although a lot of the people that are attending the Big Dig Day in Manchester have been people that are already associated with those community gardens, so and not necessarily new people or new volunteers that would like to sign up to those gardens. We've had some really good help from Sustain, so they provide flyers, posters, and risk assessments, and also a press release. And we've had a really interesting breadth of organisations involved in it. So this year we've got an art gallery, also a football club, and we've got a university, and then there's various community groups as well that are taking part. What's worked not so well is there's been a little bit of a problem. We've worked in partnership with the council, and there's been a little bit of problems with insurance, public liability insurance. There's a on council land, so there's a requirement for any events on council land to have £10 million public liability insurance, which we have actually, but we don't have enough members of staff to cover all the council based community food growing projects on the day, which has been a bit tricky. It's also during the PERDA period, so the council haven't been able to support us with the communications team due to that. We didn't have any press coverage last time. I think we've probably got better networks now to promote the Big Dig. I don't think press coverage is obviously only one of many ways to communicate about the day. So we're hoping to get things out through various networks, health, environmental networks that we're part of, and also the gardens, because they've got flyers, they can go and hand out flyers to local people that live near the gardens and advertise the project or the day that way. So one of the other issues has been that it's been fairly time intensive. Putting on any kind of event is obviously always that there's quite a bit of work that's required to do that. What we're going to do this year, though, is to make sure that the gardens do the majority of that. I think they are probably better placed actually to organise the event for their garden than we are to kind of go in and help organise that anyway. So I think all in all, we're up for the Big Dig Day again this year, and we'll see how it goes. We've certainly got a lot of interest from the projects that are in this area for having a go at it. So that's it from me.
Thank you, John. So next, I would like to talk a little bit about the support available to growing spaces and food growing networks. And I would like to take you through the registration process for gardens because it's now free, available across the UK, and it takes 5 minutes. So I'm going to use those 5 minutes and actually take you through the registration, which I think is very useful if you're doing this for the first time. So if you run a growing space and you've never registered in the Big Dig platform before, this is what you'll have to do. And for those gardens in Manchester, Durham or Birmingham that have previously registered, your details are still in the system. You can sign in using your username and password. But everyone new to the platform needs to register. But this is pretty straightforward. So the first thing you have to do is to create a login. So this is about you. When you first click Add Your Garden, this is the screenshot of what you'll see. So this is about you. This is to create a login for you. It's not about your garden yet. Those details will be captured later. So this is where you will give your name, email address, your address. You have to create a password, agree to terms and conditions, and then you move on to the next step of registration. So this is where you will need to tell us where you are. So based on your postcode, the system automatically pulls the closest local areas to you. And lots of them were pulled here because we gave a London postcode. But if you're in the Scottish Highlands, you might have less areas. So this is where you confirm your local area and press continue. And next is you finally have the opportunity to add your garden details. So this is all about your garden. You have to give the name of the garden, the address and postcode, description. So here you have to think about an interesting description that the public will see. You have the chance to choose whether you want to publish this description to be displayed to the public. You will give us the garden type, whether it's an allotment site, a community garden, a school garden, etc. The status, whether it's getting started or if it's more established. So all this information here is compulsory. You won't be able to move on to the next field unless you complete all these sections. But the information that comes next is voluntary. So then you give us information about the land, what area, and who owns the land, the people, how many people are involved, including staff and volunteers, and if you have a website, Facebook page, or Twitter account, you can give us those too. And finally, you have to select whether you want to publish the location and description of your growing space and promote to volunteers. So you can choose to go public or not at this stage. And after you've done all this, you just have to confirm the location of your garden. You will be taken to a local map with a pin. You can move this pin if the system didn't get it right. And the final bit is you have the option to add a photo of your garden. And again, if you decide to publish this information to the public, this will then be displayed on the map when people click in your growing space. And that's it. So I think it took less than 5 minutes. And this is the time that will take you. And then you land on your own dashboard. And in this dashboard, you have several functions. So here is where you can decide to join the Big Dig Day that is taking place on the 27th of April this year. You can give information to prospective volunteers. You can use the Harvestometer. You can also edit your contact details, garden image, and the description you've given us before. And you also have a section of information and resources. And here you will find, for example, all the resources to organize a Big Dig Day. I'll give a bit of detail about that later. So this is your own dashboard, and this is what John and Sarah were alluding to in terms of gardens managing their own details. So if you then want to give more information for volunteers, if you are interested in recruiting volunteers, this is where you can give a bit more detail about the typical volunteer tasks that you're asking people to do, when people can attend, the days of the week, and so on. And importantly, this will allow potential volunteers to make contact with you, but your email is not shared with them. So you will have access to their details and you can contact them. Important to say, and we'll get into a bit more detail at the end, this bit of the Big Dig website is not yet publicly available. So at the moment, if you go to the Big Dig website, you can register your growing space, but at a later date, in about 1 or 2 weeks' time, volunteers can actually go there, see what growing spaces are in their local area, and sign up to volunteer. Again, another function you have on your dashboard, if you want to take part in your Big Dig Day, you click on that function and this pop-out will appear, and you have to give a bit more detail about what you have planned for the day, and this will show on the public map. So a description about what's happening on the event, when is it happening, so the hours of the day, and what kind of activities and services you'll have available on the day. So I think we covered the Harvestometer already, and you've seen some interesting graphs in Sarah's presentation. So we try to make the Harvestometer as user-friendly as possible. So the first thing you'll have to answer is what area you're using to grow food. So this might not be the same area as the total area of your garden. And then you have to select what produce you want to record a weight for. And you can select from a drop-down menu of vegetables. This is not what you're seeing on the screen. This is the step previous to this. But you can select from a wide range of vegetables, from artichokes to turnips. You can select salads, fruits and nuts, herbs, and others. So if you select okra, for example, from the drop-down menu, this is what you'll see, and this is where you record the weight or the quantity and the date of harvest, so that you can have then a list of your harvest throughout the weeks or months. Yeah, so that was the Harvestometer. And the other thing I wanted to cover before we move on to questions is other resources we have available to support you on the Big Dig Day. As part of Veg Cities and Sustainable Food Cities support to Big Dig, we've put together this toolkit. It will be emailed to you after this webinar. And what it contains is some elements that can help you to promote the Big Dig Day in your city or local area. And we've heard from John the importance of promoting and getting press release and all of that. So we hope this will help you. So what it contains is elements like the logos, an A6 postcard and an A4 poster that you can print locally and you can personalize with garden details. It contains templates, press releases, social media tips, and we'll be adding on to this toolkit. So we're going to produce, for example, some social media cards that you can share. So we'll keep adding to this. It will also contain documents to help you plan and execute a successful and safe event, things like a risk assessment form, some ideas for activities you may want to run on the day, and etc. So as I said, all these elements will be available on your participant dashboard after registration on the website and after this webinar. So what are the next steps? So if you run a garden and you've never registered in the Big Dig platform before, that's what you have to do. Register your garden. It takes 5 minutes. It's free. And check the resources available to organize a Big Dig Day and start planning that. But as we've heard before from John and Sarah, this is much more than promoting your individual garden. This can really help a citywide approach. And so if you would like to coordinate a food growing network in your city or local area, if you would like to get local gardens mapped in your area and participate in some of them, hopefully participating in the Big Dig Day on the 27th of April, we would like to hear from you. So send me your name, email, and organization logo, and what we can do to help you, to support you, is by the end of this month, we will create a citywide dashboard to allow a coordinator to manage a network of gardens in your area and a citywide map of gardens. And also, at the end of this month, the online registration for volunteers will be available on the website, so that the Big Dig can be a really matchmaking website for volunteers and gardens. Also, if you really could do with some resources for your city or local area, I'd like to hear from you. So as part of this package of support, I'm considering printing some A6 postcards. I can send a few to your city or local area. But if you'd like to have something else, if this doesn't quite work for you, I'd really like to hear from you. So my email is here on the screen. Get in touch. So this is the end of the presentations. We would really like to hear from you. This is your time to ask questions, make suggestions. So use the attendee chat. Now we've had a few questions coming through. We will answer them in order. So I'm going to start with the first question from Jenny. And here, Sarah Gavin Dupe, who has built this platform, is here in the room with us. So I'm going to ask Gavin, is our head of digital here at Sustain, Sarah or John. Please feel free to answer. You can all pitch in. So first question from Jenny. How can volunteers find out which community gardens are participating in the Big Dig?
So it's Sarah here. I will answer that one. So the idea is once the gardens have started to register, that they will all appear on a map. And then that local map will be available and people can signpost. So if there's a local network in your area, you can signpost people towards that map. The map will have an icon where if you click on, you'll see all the details around that garden and what they're doing on the day. But the first hurdle is to get actual gardens registering and signing up for the Big Dig Day. So there's no point widely promoting the map until we've got the gardens on there. So stage one is to sign up and get the gardens. Does that answer your question okay, Jenny? Let us know if you need any more information. So Peter commented that we've already been talking to Durham, and Durham have actually been taking part in the Big Dig Day without having the map function. So we're really excited to welcome Durham to the family, hopefully, and to get lots of gardens registered on the map. I mean, I think John raised the point earlier that it can be frustrating when not all of the gardens, you know, are on the map, but we have created the system to make it as automated and simple to use for the network coordinators. So we've always had those in mind, and we just keep adding functionality to encourage those gardens to sign up. But if you've got any ideas on how we can get more gardens signing up, then we'd love to hear it.
Another question that isn't typed here, as far as I know, but John alluded to in his presentation, was around insurance. But we have good news in this front that Sarah will cover.
In Capital Growth in London, we've been working with an insurance company to look at getting a really good deal on insurance for our members, and we've managed, we feel that that's a really, really competitive, and we benchmarked it against some other people's insurance costs, and we think that it's around, it could be anywhere up to half existing costs of public liability insurance. So we have been talking to the insurance company called Access, and the good news is that they are willing to expand that offer to anybody registered with the Big Dig platform. If you actually go into the dashboard, if you're registered as a garden, there's already a box where you can find out more about that insurance. If you did want to know more details, then please do email us. So you can email chris.spears, and that's SPEIRS@sustainweb.org to find more details for him, or as I say, register on the platform and you can find out more directly.
Another point from Peter is about the sense of shared effort. Is something that could be better, especially if you have a small number of gardens wanting to be involved. John, Sarah, do you want to say anything else about this?
I don't quite understand the question. So yeah, I mean, I suppose if saying the shared effort is something that could be better, I suppose the point I was thinking about, that maybe this relates to what Peter was saying, was that obviously this isn't a magic bullet for getting volunteers into growing sites, but it definitely is a tool that can help people, and it's a tool that can help with promotion in lots of different ways. So obviously the online map is a really great resource. So once we've got the gardens registered on that, sharing that with people, particularly people that are quite tech savvy, people really enjoy that way of engaging. There's lots of opportunity to promote through social media and to do some press work, but really importantly is the sort of physical promotion. So we find that people who are attracted to gardens are actually attracted to the physical space. So having posters and materials up in your garden to promote it is something that's really valuable. And also creating a sense of this happening in your local area. So I think even if it's only 4 gardens, doing joint promotion between 4 gardens in a local area is really, really worthwhile. So yeah, I think that it's always about shared effort and always about doing local promotion. So we can't get away from the need to do that locally.
John, do you want to say anything?
Yeah, I mean, we've almost all the gardens that we've spoken to about this have wanted to take part in it, and I think it just that even though I think it's just the fact that it's a national thing, and it's feeling part of a bigger thing. Even though actually, as Sarah said, I think a lot of the promotion in reality is probably going to have to be led by them. We're not expecting coach loads of people coming in to Manchester to sort of do tours around the community gardens here, but we do, as I said, we do find it's a really good way for people that are already associated with that community garden or know of it to go along and just feel like they're part of a bigger movement across the UK.
Yeah, and I would say for us, having local champions for an area is a really vital part of what we do. So obviously working with John in Manchester and working with Peter over in Durham, and previously we've worked with Caroline and Chris in Birmingham quite a lot. So I think having those local champions is really important for us, and we can support you in turn for you to support the local gardens. So I think it's just about sort of making yourself known to us and seeing what we can do to help. Over the years, I think I might have mentioned this briefly earlier, but we used to hold the day in March, but lots of the gardens fed back to us that even though that's when you should be starting the season, that a lot of them weren't ready at that point. So we have shifted it to April. We always hope that that might bring us better weather, but we never know if that's going to come off. So do make yourself known and be a local champion for what we're trying to do. That would be really, really great.
Next question from Jennifer. How do I find out what is happening in my area in Northumberland?
I wasn't sure. I don't know if Jennifer's answered the question about, she's got her own allotment. So there you go. Peter's already saying there might be something going on locally in the neighbouring county. Unfortunately, until we reach out to some people that are running community gardens and involved in the food growing scene, I suppose, in Northumberland, we aren't able to tell you. But if you know anyone, either within the local authority or other people that are sort of championing food growing within your county, then do let us know, and we can try and tell them more about the Big Dig. Until we get the local intelligence, we can do a bit of outreach, but we can't sort of proactively go and visit all the areas. So that's where we rely on people like you.
A question from Jenny. John, this one is for you. What is Purda?
I think you might have answered it.
Yeah, I'm no expert on Purda. I've tried to answer though in the in the chat function part, and it's the I think it's particularly rigorously enforced in Manchester actually, and they do not allow any kind of announcements that might affect the election result from taking place during, I think it's 2 months building up to the local elections. Obviously, something like the Big Dig, you can't see sort of influencing the election results particularly, but unfortunately, that's their approach. And what it means is that they aren't able to promote the Big Dig day. It doesn't mean that we can't run it. As I said previously, we have all sorts of different communications channels for promoting the work that we do, and that's just one of them. So. It's still fine to run it. It's just a little bit of a headache for us, and it may be relevant to some of the other cities and regions that are taking part.
Thank you, John.
Yeah, I think Manchester have got a particularly sort of focused approach to Purda. We found that in other areas, because this isn't really a political activity, that we've managed to avoid that problem. So that's good.
From Jennifer, do you plan to run another Big Dig next year?
$1 million question. Well, I mean, our intention is that this will keep going as long as people find it useful. Obviously, it's a lot easier and it's a lot more coherent if we have some internal support to do that. And this year we have that through Veg Cities and through the work that Sophia's done in pulling everything together. So I think that it sort of depends on the success of this year and the feedback that we get and the demand for it. So we just encourage you to all to, even if you're not going to take part in the day, to register on the platform, because that shows that you're interested in what we're trying to do, and then we can make some developments from there.
Next question from Rosie. Can we add 3 gardens on the Big Dig dashboard under one login?
Gavin here from Sustain. Yes, you can register a single garden or as many gardens as you like. So you can have an infinite number of gardens, and each of those gardens will have access to its own version of the Harvestometer, and each of those gardens will appear as its own pin on the map, and you'll be able to volunteer for each of those gardens independently.
Thank you. Next question from Laura. Will we be able to see how many volunteers are planning to join?
I think that we used to have that functionality, but I think we took it off. Gavin, can you answer that?
Yeah, not specifically for the Big Dig Day, but on the Big Dig platform, the new system will record all the volunteer applications for each particular garden. So a garden will have a log of everyone who's applied to volunteer and their contact details, so they can manage their volunteers through there. So yes, they will know the number of volunteers for each garden, and that list will just grow over time as because the garden will be on the map all year round. So hopefully people will volunteer all year round.
Yeah, I mean, we used to have a function where people could register their attendance at the day, and then so that people managing those gardens could see how many people were coming. But we found that actually people weren't very reliable, and that worked both ways. So we found that people would say they were coming in and they wouldn't, and then some gardens didn't have anybody registering and so didn't run their big dig day and then had lots of people turn up. So we realised that actually that function wasn't working. So you have to really just trust that some people will come along and deal with that on the day like we do with most of our events. Obviously you can set up a local sort of, if you're doing a workshop, or you could signpost people to an Eventbrite booking, but we've found that, you know, in reality for free events you have to just take what comes.
Next question from Peter. Some of our community gardens have chosen to do their Big Dig event in the week before or after the National Day. Does the registration allow for a different date?
Yeah, we have a lot of this. We know that gardens all run in their own way, which is why we love community growing so much, but it makes it quite difficult for us to run a national day. Because it means obviously the posters have a specific date on, and so the posters become not so relevant. At the moment, I think that the online map is probably focused on one day. We could have a little...
It does have, there is always the event happening field in which you can add for each garden, which we're asking people to put in like the times it's happening. The garden could put a note in saying, please note this garden, the Big Dig for this garden will be on date X instead. So yeah, it is possible. They can still appear on the map, but clearly the garden would have to be very careful to clearly state that their Big Dig day is not actually on the Big Dig day.
Great.
Thank you. Next, we have a question specifically for John. Do you proactively encourage gardens to register and update their details if they've gone a bit quiet? It could be potentially used as a way for finding out about any issues with individual gardens.
Yeah, I mean, we run various programs of supporting these projects that are paid for by the NHS and local authorities and housing associations. So we, when we go out to see these projects, which we do from time to time to support them, then we encourage them to sign up to the map, and we provide any advice that they need, maybe if they're struggling with volunteers or with funding or anything. So the Big Dig map is only part of the support that these projects are getting from us.
Yeah, and I think that obviously if people locally have got capacity to be following up with individual gardens and seeing what support they need, then this provides some functionality to do that. And in fact, we've been talking to the Tower Hamlets Food Growing Network, and I think Maddie's on the webinar today, about because specifically they have some time to follow up with individual gardens. And so I think totally the map can be used in that way. I think the difficulty for us often in London with capital growth, and I imagine for John, is not having the capacity to do that. But if you have, then it very much offers that functionality. We also have tried to build in a functionality so that at the end of the year, if the garden doesn't log on, that they will come off of the map. And we've worked quite closely with John on sort of changing that and adapting that to what meets the needs. But ultimately, what we don't want is a map that's sort of gardens that aren't active anymore, and a platform that's not being well used. So we have built some of that functionality in, which we can talk about in more detail with the people running the platforms.
Jennifer, what is the web address of the map? Can I access it if I'm not registered? No, you haven't missed that bit.
Yeah, I should say I am actually developing all the map functionality at the moment. So hopefully the plan is by the end of next week we will have both national and local maps live on the public website. and they will be event-specific Big Dig Day maps and just maps of gardens. So hopefully end of next week, the maps will go live, and hopefully at the end of the following week, the admin interface will go live. So you'll be able to, cities will be able to manage their gardens and add gardens.
I think what's most important at this stage is there's no point having a map unless lots of gardens have registered on it. And so we would just encourage anyone that's got a garden to register on the map, so that when people start seeing the map in their local area, it'll have some data on it. Obviously, in London and in Manchester, and potentially in Birmingham, we've already got some data, and we're hoping that Durham will be able to rally some gardens. But yeah, in other areas, we're looking to you guys to get the information on there.
And we should probably add that for every registered area, we can have an individual map. So there'll be a Birmingham map, a Manchester map, a London map, and we can create a map for any given area of the country. We sort of divide the country up into about 400 different areas, and we can create a map for an individual one of those areas or a cluster of areas.
So this is really a call for action. If you are interested in coordinating action in your city or local area, please get in touch. We can support you. It's a really good tool to help your food growing network. A question about insurance deal. Is it available to Big Dig platform signups across the UK? Just to be absolutely clear, Sarah?
Yes.
Yes. So it will be available. From Laura, I think we've addressed that already, but just repeating, we had a similar question before. Are you able to see on the map which networks are active outside of London? We'd love to connect some of the schools we work with to existing community gardens partners. I think maybe the bit about sharing local maps we haven't addressed.
I suppose I would first ask Laura which area you're in, but the chances are, unless you're outside of one of the networks that we've been working closely with in the last couple of years, there isn't going to be a map ready for you to see all the gardens. The question is, can you spread the word to the local gardens in your areas and try and encourage them to register? And so we're at the sort of early stage of building momentum around getting areas outside of the ones that we've worked with to register. Obviously, we've got many contacts through our Sustainable Food Cities network, and it also ties in with a question a bit further down when someone's asked us if we've engaged with the Incredible Edible network. The answer is definitely yes. In fact, I don't know if Sarah's actually here, but Sarah from Incredible Edible, the core team, was registered today, and we've been working closely with Gary, who's been promoting the webinar today. So they are very much engaged in what we're doing, and we've been talking to them, so they're very supportive of this. And we've also made sure that we're not duplicating the functions that Incredible Edible run, which we don't, because at the moment their maps are maps of networks rather than maps of individual gardens. So that question.
So we're running over, as you've seen, but we still have a few more questions, so we will answer them. From Rosie, who can view the map? Is it easy for anyone to search for and view?
Yes, I think so.
Yes, it will be.
It will be. Once they're live, yes, it will be a public map. There'll be a national map that will show all the data, and there will be hopefully eventually a large number of area-specific maps. For example, a Manchester map, a Birmingham map, and hopefully a Durham map and a London map will go live hopefully next week, and ideally other areas will follow on.
And you can, at the moment, we've had a map like this in London for many years, and so we know that we get lots and lots of hits on the volunteer page and people connecting with gardens. So you're welcome to go and look at the Capital Growth map, which we can send a link to, and to see what that looks like if you're very curious today. Or you can just go to www.capitalgrowth.org and go to the volunteer box, and that will bring you up a map of the London gardens.
Yeah, and I should add also that every individual garden on the Big Dig platform will also have its own unique URL, which it will be able to share, which will bring up their details immediately with the volunteering functionality and a map of where their garden is and their description.
Okay, shall I answer the Harvestometer question?
Yeah, one I think for you, Gav, from Louise. Is the Harvestometer tool available for us to use on the Veg Cities site?
Well, I'll answer that one. Basically, it's available to use if you register your garden on the Big Dig platform. So you have to register on the Big Dig platform, which is linked to Veg Cities, in order to be able to use the Harvestometer. So that's the sort of condition for you to be able. But yeah, loads of schools love it. We've also had we've got lots of school resources, again, which you can access in the dashboard. We've done lots of lesson plans on how using the Harvestometer with school children works, and lots of people use it to measure impact for their funding. So Louise, you totally hit the nail on the head there with that question. So yeah, definitely get registered.
And I could add, we are also, later enough, we're going to develop a link between the Big Dig and the Veg Cities platform to synchronise harvest data. So you have to be registered on the Big Dig platform, but if you are, you'll be able to press a button and it will post the data over into the Veg Cities platform. So you can record it there as part of a Veg Cities action.
Just confirming Jennifer's question, is it okay to register my own personal allotment? Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, go for it. We try and be inclusive and open as possible. So if we can make the parameters wide, we will. So yeah, we love home growers too. And great to hear some feedback from specific areas that are interested. So Laura, we'd be really interested in following that up with you. I saw someone just put a question on, but I can't see the question. James,
I think this is the end of our questions. If you have any further feedback, ideas, questions, I'll leave the webinar open for another 5 minutes, so feel free to type in. But it's a goodbye from us for now. So I would like to thank again our wonderful presenters, Sarah Williams and John Ross. Thank you for your insight, your ideas, your experience, and for everyone else for participating in this webinar. We have a few new contacts in cities and local areas. Thank you for that. And we'll send you recording and presentations afterwards. So thank you very much again. And keep visiting the Big Dig website, because as Sarah and Gav said, in 1 and 2 weeks, the maps will be available, and a function for volunteers to register will also be available. So keep visiting the website and get in touch if you have any further questions or feedback.
thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.